I won't be talking about anything around injuries or fashion in sports, but rather I'll be talking around something around the biomechanics of cricket, and specifically looking at the backlift in cricket. We've done this research that has spanned over about a 9-year period, and so I just want to try and give you a snapshot of where we are right now by looking at the validations of the backlift technique in cricket using deep learning architectures and sensor-based technologies. So very simply, there's two different types of backlifts. In the image, as you can see on your screen, you'll have a straight backlift technique. So the one on the left that you see on your screen is a bat that is directed over the stumps or towards a wicketkeeper. And on the right of your screen, you have a bat that is directed towards a second slip or towards or beyond gully. And in another dimension with regards to the backlift classification is that we have a closed face of the bat that we see, which is most common with straight backlifts, where the face of the bat's face towards the ground, and an open face of the bat where the face of the bat is pointed towards the offside. So one of the things that really inspired our work over this time was to understand what are the test cricket players doing. And we looked at 30 of the best cricket players in terms of their averages in runs scored. And from this particular subgroup, we were able to see that out of those 30 players, 5 of them had a straight backlift. But there was a bit of an outlier on this particular chart, and that was Sir Donald Bradman, who came in at least 38 runs, a little bit more than the second best person on this chart. Now, we're not saying that all batters should bat like Sir Donald Bradman. He was obviously a distinct outlier. But the reason in terms of how we batted and the common knowledge that has come today around the rotary batting method, we wanted to investigate this a little bit further. So you can see that a lot of these images are not very well pixelated, and that's because a lot of these shots are from 1895 and beyond. But as we get closer to the time, over a 100-year period, we start to see that a vast majority of these successful batters, according to our criteria, did have a lateral backlift. And if you go to a lot of the T20 leagues and the IPL league, you'll find that a lot of these cricket players do display attributes of a lateral backlift. It's just simply not a natural movement to pick the bat straight back up and expect batters to hit the ball in an offensive way. It's mainly a defensive mechanism, but if you want to see batters that are going to be explosive, as you see right now, a vast majority of them would either have a lateral backlift or an open face of the bat. So if we look at the lateral backlift across the different formats, what we found that from Test cricket, it's around 75%. It slightly goes up at ODI cricket at about 80%, and at the T20 level at 90%. So there is a slightly increased in prevalence of the backlift across different formats as the shorter version of the game comes in. Particularly a 5% difference between Tests and ODIs, and a 10% difference between ODIs in T20 cricket, and a significant difference between all different formats. So the shorter the version is, the more prominent you'll see a lateral backlift among batters playing within that particular format. So aside from formats, what happens around the lateral backlift across different levels of play? So we looked at a subset of about 450 cricket batters, and across all these different levels, the percentage at adolescent level starts at 25%. It increases to about 38% at the amateur level, very similarly at 40% at the state and county level, and then a big increase to about 75% at the international level, which indirectly suggests that even similarly with the levels of play, that as a batter goes higher up within the game, or if they succeed at different levels, especially at the elite level, that's where you're going to start seeing the lateral backlift to be a lot more common. So if we do a four-way comparison of batting backlift techniques across the different levels of play, we've also found that a lot of the players who have been coached, a vast majority of them did have a straight backlift. And that's because at the time of the study, a lot of the coaches were still using their traditional coaching methodologies or philosophies that lifting a bat straight up will allow a bat to come straight down. But when we look at an uncoached cricketer, particularly in this particular picture over here with the kid in the green t-shirt, that's a child from the South African township. He's never played cricket before. He's never been coached. And so the natural movement for him was to not lift the bat straight back, but to rather lift it into a lateral direction. And that's very similar to a lot of the successful batters that you'd also see playing at the very high level. And so very similar to what Rene mentioned earlier in his talk is, cricket does have a rotational component. And what we've seen with other sports, such as javelin, the forehand in tennis, a baseball hit, or even a powerball throw in CrossFit, a lot of rotational inertia is being displayed because it's simply just not a natural movement to lift the bat straight up in cricket batting and to expect to play the cross-bat shots, such as the cut or the pull. So we're not saying that the backlift is a key determinant. We have to understand that cricket batting success is multifactorial. There's various factors that contribute to the success of a cricket batter. But it's really important to understand at the same time that as the game is evolving, we are not going to see a lot of match play, especially with batting being played in a linear plane, but there are going to be components of rotational inertia coming in. And so one of the things in cricket batting, or even with performance analysis or video analysis in sport, is that it's becoming very time consuming. And one of the things that AI brings in right now is efficiency in saving time for video analysts and support staff at the top level to save time to give real-time feedback to players. So we want to understand, can AI assist in recognizing the backlift using deep learning architectures? And this was conducted with my colleagues at the University of Johannesburg, Tevin Moodley and Professor Dustin van der Haar. So we use various deep learning architectures, as you can see on screen, ranging from the AlexNet, Inception v3, Inception v2, and Exception. And we wanted to see if there were any validations that we will be able to see from all the pictures and from all the videos that we had analyzed with the backlift. And in short, long story short, we were able to find that the exception architecture from these deep learning architectures was a lot more accurate and precise, in particular giving a 98.2% accuracy prediction. Now, if you look at a number of machine learning models in sports science, if you are given a more than a 95% accuracy prediction, it's deemed to have a very high validity and reliability. And we were able to validate and extenuate that a particular deep learning architecture from exception was able to automate the recognition of the backlift technique. And that's a snapshot of the deep learning architecture, and the reason why it also has a high validity is because it has 3 repeated measures of logistic regressions to really understand the backlift in its different planes. So aside from the deep learning architecture, we wanted to take this a step further and to try and see how can we make this a little bit more easier and efficient for the video analyst. And there's a company that we're currently collaborating with in Bangalore, in India, which they've come up with a sensor sensor technology that you fit onto the distal end of the cricket bat, and that's known as stance beam. And it collaborates with an app in real time, and it displays a number of variables that you would be able to see. And in particular, we want to understand not just the backlift angle, but also looking at other parameters such as bat speed, speed at impact, time to impact, other various aspects of the follow-through to really get a more comprehensive understanding beyond just the component of the backlift. And right now, my master's student, Tamara Patel, is investigating the backlift among female cricket players, and she's specifically looking at the Protea women's team and the under-19 cricket team in South Africa. And that's because not much research has been done on female cricket players, specifically looking at batting. And she has used the stance beam, and the preliminary findings are showing that there is a little bit more validity and accuracy with stance beam as opposed to your more conventional motion capture analysis. So in the summary section for this particular aspect of the presentation is that the successful recognition of batting techniques using deep learning architectures and sensor-based technology opens up avenues for automatic pattern recognition, performance analysis, and motion capture in cricket. The findings demonstrate the capability of these approaches and provide valuable tools for sports scientists, biomechanists, and video analysts working in cricket. And lastly, future research can further explore the applications of AI and sensor-based technologies to augment performance analysis in cricket and provide real-time feedback to players and coaches. And so one more validation I'd like to share before I conclude, and that is the coaching cricket bat. And one of the ideas we had is that we wanted to merge a tennis racket and cricket bat into one, and thereby we had one of the first prototypes of a coaching cricket bat. And one of the things that we've discovered was that coaches specifically really found it challenging to teach a lateral backlift or to teach any backlift to young cricket players. And I want to just note that it has taken us 8 years to work on this project, and we have failed a number of times. We went through about 6 or 7 prototypes, and we failed on a number of these prototypes. And through constant validations of the cricket bat, we have finally come to the one which I'll just show. But we had to go through a number of RCT trials, and that is having one group using a normal bat in training and another group using a coaching cricket bat in training. And one of the first papers that we published in the BMJ Open Journal found that the control group using a normal bat in training over a 6-week period was relatively constant in their number of runs scored, but over a 6-week period with the experimental group, they almost doubled their runs scored, which showed an effect size of 5.41. Now, the findings from this particular study was not conclusive because of the shorter week intervention in the smaller sample. And right now we have another master's student who's now looking at the mid to long-term effects of the coaching cricket bat over a 12 to 16-week period, and to validate and to attenuate if there's any effect, not just on the backlift, but also around the performance of junior cricket players. So this particular bat right now, if you go to the Lord's Cricket Museum, we were quite humbled to have it inaugurated into their museum. And this has been a fantastic collaboration with Russell Hulmer, who is the son of the late Bob Hulmer. And that was the previous prototype that we had worked on. But right now, this is the latest one that you see on screen. You would also be able to scan this particular QR code if you'd like to know a little bit more. That just talks to you around the validations and the science and the development of the bat, in particular finding the right material to make this particular cricket bat for young cricket players. So that's the one right here. So this simple piece of hood that you see right in front of you took about 8 to 9 years. And that's one of the messages when it comes to sports innovation. If you rush the process, your output's going to be very simple. And you've got to be extremely patient through the validation process to come to a product that you would want to be confident that would make a difference with any setting that you're working within. And a lot of thanks must give to my mentor and to my colleague over the last decade who has worked with us on this project, Professor Tim Noakes, who needs no introduction. And I think also a lot of thanks to him for teaching us that as academics, how to balance criticism with constructivism. So I continue to be piqued by the evolution of cricket, and specifically the anthropological way of the way cricket batting has evolved, and where cricket batting is going forward, especially with the explosive nature that we see in the shorter nature of the game. And so the next step for me is to really understand what are the particular factors and determinants of cricket batting success over a 30-year period. Now, there's a handful of papers. If you go and search for cricket injury papers, you're going to find a whole lot. But specifically around performance of cricket batting and the factors and determinants that determine a successful cricket batter, there's going to be a number of papers that you'll find. And the papers that you see on your screen now are just a handful. There's a far more that one has to look into. And so that's the next step. With the evolution of cricket and the way in which cricket batting has really been so advanced, there's clearly a need to really understand, not just to understand what makes a successful cricket batter, but also at the junior level, what would be the parameters to assist them in becoming a successful cricket batter. So I'd like to thank you for your attention.